The red sun of New Busan cast long shadows across the mining camp as another day of slavery began. Dongwook pulled his worn jacket tighter around his shoulders and watched the alien guards march through the compound. Their blue skin gleamed like ice in the morning light, and their forearms moved with mechanical precision as they counted the human workers. The Valthari had ruled New Busan for 15 long years. 15 years since their ships had appeared in the sky like silver death, raining fire on the human colonies. 15 years since they had declared humanity nothing more than useful animals. "Move faster, creatures!" barked Guard Captain Zelthar, his translator making his harsh alien words sound cold and empty. "The mines will not work themselves." Dongwook joined the line of workers shuffling toward the transport vehicles. Around him, men and women who had once been teachers, doctors, and engineers now moved like broken machines. Their eyes were hollow, their backs bent from years of hard labor in the deep tunnels beneath the planet's surface. The transport rumbled to life, its alien engine making a sound like grinding metal. Dongwook found a seat next to Hanul, a young woman who had somehow kept her spirit alive despite everything. Her dark eyes still held fire, though she was careful never to let the guards see it. "Any word from the eastern camps?" Hanul whispered, pretending to adjust her mining helmet. 3 more families taken to the education centers last week," Dongwook replied quietly. "The children are being moved to the capital." Hanul's jaw tightened. The education centers were where the Valthari took human children to break their spirits and turn them into loyal servants. Most children who entered those places came out speaking only Valthari words, their human memories wiped away like dust. The transport jerked to a stop at Mine Shaft 7, the deepest excavation site on New Busan. Here, human workers dug for dilithium crystals that powered Valthari starships. The crystals were beautiful, glowing with inner light, but they were also deadly. Many workers died from exposure to the radiation, but the aliens simply brought in more humans to replace them. Dongwook grabbed his tools and followed the others into the dark tunnel. The air was thick and hard to breathe. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the rough stone walls. Deep in the earth, it was easy to forget that there had ever been a world above, ever been freedom. But Dongwook remembered. He remembered his wife Yun-Young, killed in the first bombing raids. He remembered his son Jae-min, taken to an education center when he was only 8 years old. He remembered the taste of real food, the sound of human laughter, the feeling of walking under open sky without fear. Most importantly, he remembered that some humans still fought back. "Team 7, report to Section D," came the announcement over the mine's communication system. Dongwook smiled slightly. Section D was code. It meant there would be a meeting tonight. The workday dragged on like all the others. Dongwook's team used laser cutters to slice through solid rock, following veins of dilithium deeper into the planet's core. The crystals pulsed with energy as they were exposed to air, beautiful and dangerous. Guard Captain Zelthar made his rounds, his 4 eyes, scanning the workers for signs of weakness or rebellion. He carried a shock rod that could drop a grown human with one touch. Dongwook had felt that pain before, and had no desire to experience it again. "You work too slowly," Zelthar said, stopping beside Hanul's position. "Perhaps you need motivation." The alien reached for his shock rod, but Hanul didn't flinch. She continued cutting crystals with steady hands, her face showing nothing but concentration. After a moment, Zelthar moved on, disappointed that he couldn't provoke a reaction. Evening finally came, and the workers returned to the surface. The compound was surrounded by high walls topped with energy fields that would kill anyone who tried to climb them. Guard towers stood at each corner, their searchlights sweeping back and forth across the living quarters. Dongwook waited until full darkness fell before making his way to the old maintenance building. Others were already there, sitting in a circle in the dim light of a single emergency lamp. There was Somin, whose entire family had been executed for hiding food. There was Kyung-soo, who had been a ship captain before the invasion. There was young Boram, barely 18 but already hardened by years of slavery. "We got a message," Hanul said, producing a small device from her jacket. It was Valthari technology, modified with human ingenuity to receive transmissions from deep space. Someone is listening. The device crackled to life and a human voice spoke from the speakers. The signal was weak and filled with static, but the words were clear enough. "This is Admiral Tae-hyung of the Human Defense Force. We have received your reports. We know about the camps, the mines, the children. Help is coming. Stay strong. Earth remembers." The room fell silent. Some of the resistance members began to cry. Others stared at the device as if it might disappear. For 15 years they had sent messages into the void, never knowing if anyone was listening. "Could be a trap," So-min said finally. "The aliens are clever. They could be testing us." "It could be," Dong-wook agreed. "But we have to hope. Hope is all we have left." The next morning brought terrible news. Governor Kethmore, the Valthari, ruler of New Busan, had ordered a public execution. 12 humans had been caught trying to escape to the mountains. They would die as an example to all others. The entire human population was forced to watch as the prisoners were brought to the central square. Among them was an old man named Han Sol, who had taught children in the camps. There was a young mother, named Yoo-jin, who had been caught stealing medicine for her sick daughter. Governor Kethmore stood before the crowd, his crystalline body reflecting the light like a living statue. When he spoke, his words were translated into human speech and broadcast throughout the colony. "Look upon these creatures and see the price of defiance," he said. "Your species exists only to serve. You are animals who have been given the gift of purpose. Some of you forget this truth and must be reminded." The executions were quick, but brutal. Energy beams from Valthari weapons turned the 12 humans to ash in seconds. Governor Kethmore watched without emotion, as if he were simply disposing of broken tools. "Remember this day," the governor continued. "Remember that your fate is eternal service. Your children will serve, and their children after them. This is the natural order. This is justice." But as Dong-wook watched the ashes of the executed rebels blow away in the wind, he thought about the message they had received. Somewhere out there, humans were still fighting. Somewhere out there, people remembered what freedom looked like. That night, Hanul detected strange energy readings on her modified scanner. Something large was moving in the outer system, beyond the range of Valthari sensors. So-min reported unusual activity among the alien guards, who seemed nervous and kept checking their weapons. Change was coming to New Busan. After 15 years of darkness, the first light of hope was beginning to shine. The rebellion was about to begin. 3 months before the resistance meeting on New Busan, Admiral Tae-hyung stood on the bridge of the hidden warship Incheon's Revenge. The massive vessel drifted silently through an asteroid field, invisible to all scanners. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, monitoring signals from across human space. The ship was enormous, larger than any vessel humanity had ever built before the invasion. Its hull was black as space itself, designed to absorb light and energy. Special coating made it invisible to Valthari sensors, while advanced engines allowed it to move without creating heat signatures. For 10 years, it had been humanity's greatest secret. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from New Busan," reported Communications Officer Jin A. Her voice was steady, but Tae-hyung could see the anger in her eyes. Every message from the occupied worlds told the same story of suffering and death. "Put it through to my private quarters," Tae-hyung said. "And send word to Dr. Ye-jin. Tell her I want to see the latest test results." The Admiral walked to his cabin and closed the door. The message began to play, and Dong-wook's voice filled the small room. The resistance leader spoke in code, but Tae-hyung understood every word. More children taken, more executions, more families destroyed by alien cruelty. Tae-hyung closed his eyes and remembered his own losses. His daughter had been on the colony ship that was destroyed during first contact. His wife had died defending Earth's orbital stations. Like every human who survived the invasion, he carried the weight of the dead on his shoulders. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Ye-jin entered carrying a datapad, and wearing the tired expression of someone who had worked too many hours without sleep. "The weapon tests were successful," she reported. "We can now match Valthari's shield technology, and our new particle beams can cut through their hull armor like paper." Dr. Yejin had been Earth's leading physicist before the war. Now she spent her days studying captured alien technology, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited. Her laboratory was filled with broken Valthari equipment, each piece carefully examined and understood. "How did we get so lucky with their technology?" Taehyung asked. "They're arrogant," Yejin replied. "They never imagined we could understand their science. When they set up their occupation forces, they used their regular equipment without any security modifications. Our people in the labor camps have been secretly collecting broken devices for years." The doctor activated her datapad, showing holographic images of Valthari weapons and shields. "Their technology is advanced, but it's not magic. Once we understood the basic principles, we could improve on their designs. Human creativity is something they never accounted for." Taehyung nodded. "What about the other ships in the fleet?" "All 12 dreadnoughts are ready for combat," Yejin said. "Seoul's Vengeance finished its trials last week. Tokyo's Wrath is conducting final weapons testing. The captains report their crews are eager to begin the liberation." The admiral walked to his viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of humans lived under alien rule. Children who had never known freedom. Adults who had forgotten what it felt like to make their own choices. All waiting for rescue that they didn't even know was coming. "Tell me about our intelligence network," Taehyung said. "Better than we hoped," Yejin replied. "Every human the Valthari think is a collaborator is actually working for us. Their entire intelligence system is compromised. They think they know what humans are doing, but they only see what we want them to see." The deception had taken years to arrange. When the Valthari first occupied human worlds, they needed local people to help run their administration. They chose humans who seemed cooperative and grateful for alien rule. What they didn't know was that these collaborators had been carefully selected by the underground resistance. Commander Jae-wook appeared in the doorway, his marine uniform spotless despite having spent the morning training troops in zero-gravity combat. He was a large man with scars on his face from the early battles against the Valthari invasion fleet. "Admiral, the Marines are ready," he reported. "We've trained them to fight in alien ship corridors using captured Valthari weapons. They know the layout of enemy vessels and the weak points in alien armor." "How many boarding teams do we have?" Taehyung asked. "Enough to take control of their entire fleet if necessary," Jae-wook replied with a cold smile. "The men are angry, sir. They've been waiting years for the chance to pay back the aliens for what they did to our families." Taehyung understood that anger. Every person on the hidden fleet had lost someone in the war, but anger alone wouldn't win battles. They needed discipline, planning, and perfect timing. "What about enemy fleet movements?" the admiral asked. "Our spies report that Governor Kethmore is gathering ships around New Busan," Jin-ae said from her communication station. "He's planning something big, maybe another demonstration of power to break human resistance." "Perfect," Taehyung said. "The more ships they bring, the bigger the message we'll send when we destroy them." Dr. Yejin looked up from her datapad. "Admiral, are you sure we're ready for this? Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. The Valthari will know that humans are more dangerous than they thought." "We've been hiding for 15 years, Taehyung replied. "Our people have suffered long enough. It's time to show these aliens what happens when they underestimate humanity." The admiral called up a star chart on the main display. Red dots showed Valthari-occupied worlds, while blue dots marked the positions of human ships. For the first time since the invasion, there were more blue dots than red ones. "The Valthari High Command thinks they've won," Taehyung said. "They believe humans are broken, defeated, good only for slave labor. Their arrogance has made them careless. They don't patrol the outer systems anymore. They don't expect attacks. They think we're no longer a threat." Commander Jae-wook checked his weapon and smiled grimly. "They're about to learn how wrong they are. Send the signal to all ships," Admiral Taehyung ordered. "Operation Silent Thunder begins now. All vessels are to proceed to New Busan and take positions around the planet. Maintain stealth until my direct order." Throughout the asteroid field, 11 other massive ships began to move. Each one was a masterpiece of human engineering, built in secret shipyards that the aliens had never discovered. Each one carried weapons that could match anything in the Valthari fleet. The Soul's Vengeance, commanded by Captain Wu Jin, slipped away from its hiding place behind a small moon. The Tokyo's Wrath, under Captain Min Ho, powered up its engines and began the journey to New Busan. One by one, the ships of humanity's secret fleet emerged from their hiding places and began to converge on their target. Dr. Yejin watched the fleet movements on her screen. The Valthari have no idea what's coming for them. Good, Admiral Taehyung said. Let them enjoy their arrogance while it lasts. Soon they'll learn that enslaving humanity was the biggest mistake their species ever made. As the Incheon's revenge moved through space toward New Busan, Admiral Taehyung thought about the message he would soon send to every human in the galaxy. After 15 years of darkness, the light of freedom was about to shine again. The liberation of humanity was about to begin. Captain Wu Jin stood on the bridge of Soul's Vengeance as the massive warship moved through the darkness between stars. Around him, his crew worked with quiet determination, their faces lit by the soft glow of control panels. Every person on the ship had lost family during the Valthari invasion, and now they were finally getting their chance for revenge. Captain, we're approaching the rally point, reported Navigation Officer Sang Wook. The other ships should be arriving soon. Through the viewport, Wu Jin could see the distant glow of New Busan's sun. Somewhere near that star, millions of humans lived in slavery, not knowing that liberation was only days away. The thought made his hands clench into fists. Any sign of Valthari patrols, he asked. Nothing, sir, replied Sensor Officer Hyjin. Their overconfidence is showing. They haven't sent a patrol ship through this sector in months. Captain Wu Jin smiled coldly. The aliens had grown lazy during their 15 years of rule. They believed humans were completely defeated, no longer capable of organized resistance. That mistake was about to cost them everything. One by one, the other ships of the hidden fleet began to appear on sensors. Tokyo's Wrath materialized from behind a gas giant, its black hull invisible against the stars. Busan's Pride emerged from the shadow of an asteroid, while Gwangju's Fury dropped out of hyperspace with engines glowing. Soon all 12 dreadnoughts were gathered in formation, the largest human fleet ever assembled. Each ship was 3 times the size of the biggest Valthari cruiser, armed with weapons that could punch through any alien shield. They had been built in secret over 10 long years, using resources gathered from across human space. This is Admiral Taehyung to all ships, came the voice from the communication system. Today we begin the liberation of our people. Remember what they took from us. Remember why we fight. Make them pay for every human life they destroyed. The captains responded with determination in their voices. Captain Min Ho of Tokyo's Wrath had lost his children in the occupation. Captain So Young of Daigu's Hammer had seen her parents executed for hiding food. Every commander had personal reasons to hate the aliens. Meanwhile, on New Busan, the resistance was preparing for their role in the coming battle. Hanul worked frantically in her hidden workshop, using scavenged Valthari equipment to identify key targets across the planet. Her fingers flew over alien control panels as she mapped guard positions, weapon depots, and communication centers. The aliens are moving more troops into the capital, she reported to Dong Wook during their secret meeting. Something has them worried. Dong Wook nodded grimly. Their patrol ships have been coming back damaged. Some haven't come back at all. They know something is happening, but they don't know what. In the mining camp, Soman had been quietly training civilian volunteers in basic combat techniques. Using tools from the workshops, they had created improvised weapons and explosive devices. When the time came, every human on New Busan would be ready to fight for their freedom. How many can we count on? Dong Wook asked. Nearly everyone, Soman replied. 15 years of slavery have left people angry and desperate. They're ready to die for the chance to be free again. The resistance had also been gathering intelligence on Valthari military positions. Boram had memorized the locations of every guard tower, every weapon emplacement, every weakness in the alien defenses. Young Kyung-soo had mapped the underground tunnels that could be used to move fighters without being detected. Dr. Ye-jin, aboard the Incheon's Revenge, was making final adjustments to the fleet's weapon systems. Her modifications to captured Valthari technology had given human ships capabilities their creators never intended. Particle beams that could slice through alien armor, shields that could absorb energy attacks and redirect them back at enemies. "The adaptive shield generators are working perfectly," she reported to Admiral Tae-hyung. "We can absorb their plasma weapons and convert the energy to power our own systems. Every shot they fire at us will make us stronger." Commander Jae-wook was conducting final briefings with his Marine assault teams. These were the elite soldiers who would board alien ships and capture them from within. They had trained for years in mock-ups of Valthari vessel interiors, learning every corridor and weak point. "Remember, we want prisoners," Jae-wook told his troops. "Some of these aliens need to survive to carry word back to their empire. We want them to know that humanity is no longer helpless prey." The Valthari, meanwhile, were beginning to realize something was wrong. Commodore Vexthan stood in the command center of his flagship, studying reports of missing patrol vessels. 3 ships had vanished in the outer system, leaving only debris and strange energy readings. "Could it be pirates?" suggested his aide, a nervous young officer named Kelmore. "What pirates would dare attack Valthari ships?" Vexthan replied. "And what weapons could destroy our vessels so completely?" Governor Kethmore had called for reinforcements from neighboring systems. More than 200 warships were now gathering around New Busan, the largest Valthari fleet assembled in decades. The aliens were taking no chances with whatever threat was lurking in their territory. "Perhaps we should evacuate the human population," suggested one of his advisors. "If there is going to be a battle, they might be caught in the crossfire." "Absolutely not," Kethmore responded angrily. "The humans are valuable resources. We will not abandon them because of some unknown threat. Besides, they are too broken to cause any real problems." The governor's arrogance was shared by most of the Valthari command structure. They had ruled humans for so long that they couldn't imagine their slaves ever becoming a threat. This blindness would soon prove to be their fatal weakness. As the human fleet took position around New Busan, Admiral Tae-hyung received final reports from his captains. All ships were ready, all weapons charged, all crews prepared for battle. The moment they had planned for 10 years was finally at hand. "Begin final approach," the Admiral ordered. "Maintain stealth fields until we reach optimal firing position. When we reveal ourselves, I want every alien ship in range of our weapons." The 12 human dreadnoughts moved silently through space, invisible to Valthari sensors. Their black hulls absorbed starlight while their advanced engines left no heat. Signature. To the aliens, the ship simply didn't exist. On New Busan's surface, Hanyul detected massive energy buildup in the space around the planet. Her hidden sensors were picking up gravitational distortions that suggested large objects moving in formation. She smiled as she realized what the readings meant. "They're here," she whispered to herself. "The fleet is here." The liberation of New Busan was about to begin. Governor Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion, watching his fleet take position above New Busan. 300 Valthari warships filled the space around the planet, their silver hulls gleaming in the light of the system's red sun. It was the largest show of force the Empire had mounted in decades. "Begin the demonstration," the governor ordered coldly. "Target the mining settlements first. Let the humans see what happens to those who dare resist our rule." The massive Valthari fleet moved into attack formation, their weapons charged with deadly energy, ready to rain destruction on the helpless humans below. Kethmore smiled as he imagined the terror his display would create. After today, no human would ever think of rebellion again. But as the alien ships prepared to fire, something impossible happened. The space directly above the Eternal Dominion began to shimmer and bend, like heat waves rising from hot ground. The air itself seemed to tear apart, revealing something that made every Valthari officer freeze in shock. The Incheon's Revenge materialized out of nothing, dropping its stealth field with dramatic effect. The massive human dreadnought was 3 times larger than any Valthari ship, its black hull bristling with weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. Shadow fell across the alien flagship as the enormous vessel blocked out the sun. Impossible, Governor Kethmore whispered, his crystalline face turning pale blue with fear. The humans have no ships. We destroyed their fleet years ago. But even as he spoke, more human vessels began appearing around the planet. Seoul's vengeance decloaked behind a group of Valthari cruisers. Tokyo's wrath materialized directly in front of the alien battle line. One by one, 12 massive human dreadnoughts revealed themselves, surrounding the Valthari fleet in a perfect sphere of death. Admiral Taehyung stood on the bridge of Inchin's Revenge, looking down at the alien ships that had seemed so powerful just moments before. Now they looked like toys scattered across a child's room, small and fragile compared to the giants that surrounded them. Open communication channels to all Valthari vessels, he ordered, and make sure every human settlement on the planet can hear this message. Communications officer Jin'e nodded and activated the broadcast system. The admiral's voice would reach every ship in the enemy fleet, every alien commander, every human slave who had given up hope of ever seeing freedom again. I am Admiral Taehyung of the Human Liberation Fleet. His words echoed across space and down to the planet below. For 15 years you have enslaved our people. You have murdered our families. You have called us animals and treated us worse than beasts. Today, that ends. On the surface of New Busan, humans in the mining camps looked up at the sky in wonder. Some fell to their knees crying at the sight of human ships in space again. Others cheered and raised their fists in triumph. After so many years of darkness, the light of hope had finally returned. Dong-wook stood in the central square where 12 humans had been executed just days before. Now he watched as alien guards ran in panic, their weapons forgotten as they stared at the massive human ships above them. The tables had turned, and the hunters had become the hunted. You came to our worlds believing we were helpless, Admiral, Taehyung continued, his voice carrying across the communication channels. You enslaved our children, murdered our families, and declared us an inferior species. But you made one fatal mistake. You underestimated humanity. Governor Kethmore finally found his voice. This is impossible. Humans don't have the technology to build such ships. Your species is primitive, weak. You cannot threaten the Valthari Empire. Look around you, Taehyung replied calmly. Your fleet is surrounded. Your ships are outgunned. Your empire's reputation for invincibility is about to be shattered. We learned from your own technology, improved upon it, and turned it against you. The governor tried to maintain his composure, but fear was clear in his voice. Even if you destroy this fleet, the empire will send more ships. We have thousands of vessels, millions of warriors. You cannot fight us all. We don't need to fight, you all, Admiral Taehyung said. We only need to prove that you can be defeated. Once word spreads that humans destroyed a Valthari fleet, every enslaved species in the galaxy will rise up against you. Your empire will crumble from within. Captain Wu Jin aboard Seoul's Vengeance watched as several Valthari ships tried to escape the trap. His weapons locked onto their engines, charging with deadly energy. Admiral, some of them are trying to run. Let them go, Taehyung ordered, but disable their weapons first. I want survivors to carry word of this defeat back to their homeworlds. The human fleet opened fire with surgical precision. Particle beams sliced through Valthari ship hulls like knives through paper. The aliens' supposedly impenetrable shields collapsed under the assault, their energy absorbed and redirected by human defensive systems that use their own technology against them. Commander Jae-wook led the first boarding assault, his Marines using teleporter technology to beam directly onto enemy ships. The Valthari crew, trained to fight at long range with energy weapons, were helpless against human soldiers who fought with determination and fury at close quarters. Deck by deck, room by room, Jae-wook told his troops over the communication system. Take the ship, capture the crew, but remember we need some of them alive to tell their story. Dr. Ye-jin coordinated the technical warfare from her position on Incheon's Revenge. Her modifications to captured alien systems allowed human ships to hack directly into Valthari computer networks, turning their own defensive systems against them. Their command codes are compromised, she reported to Admiral Taehyung. I can shut down their shields, disable their weapons, even lock their crew inside their own ships if necessary. The battle, if it could even be called that, was over almost before it began. Valthari ships that had ruled space for centuries found themselves helpless against human vessels that should not have existed. The aliens who had called themselves the master race discovered that their slaves had become their equals. On New Busan's surface, the resistance emerged from hiding as Valthari ground forces abandoned their posts. So-Min led assault teams against the internment camps, freeing thousands of human prisoners who had never expected to see the outside world again. Hanul took control of the planetary communication system, broadcasting footage of the space battle to every corner of human-occupied space. "People of Earth, people of all the colonies," she spoke into the transmitter. "This is New Busan calling. The liberation has begun. We are free." Governor Kethmore watched his fleet being systematically destroyed, ship after ship falling to human weapons that should not have been possible. His flagship shook under the impact of particle beams that cut through its armor like it was made of paper. "Surrender," came Admiral Taehyung's voice over the communication system. "Order your remaining ships to stand down, and we will allow you to live." The governor looked around his bridge, seeing the fear in his officers' eyes. The mighty Valthari Empire, undefeated for 1,000 years, had been brought to its knees by the very species they had dismissed as animals. "I surrender," he said quietly, his voice barely a whisper. But even as the words left his mouth, Kethmore knew that this defeat meant more than the loss of a single fleet. Word would spread across the galaxy that humans had returned to space, stronger than ever before. The age of Valthari supremacy was ending, and a new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. The space around New Busan became a graveyard of Valthari ambition. Broken alien ships drifted between the massive human dreadnoughts, their hulls torn open like metal flowers blooming in the darkness. What had begun as a demonstration of Valthari power had become a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Captain Wu Jin watched from the bridge of Soul's Vengeance as his weapons tore through another group of alien cruisers. The enemy ships fired desperately at his vessel, their plasma beams striking the adaptive shields that Dr. Yejin had developed. But instead of damaging the human ship, the energy was absorbed and converted into power for even more devastating. "Return fire. Their weapons are useless against us," reported Tactical Officer Chang Min with satisfaction. "Every shot they fire just makes our shields stronger and gives us more energy for our own guns." 5 Valthari cruisers surrounded Soul's Vengeance, trying to overwhelm it with concentrated fire. But the human dreadnought's defenses held easily, absorbing the alien attacks while its own particle beams carved through enemy hulls with surgical precision. One by one, the alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Commander Jae-wook led his marine assault teams through the corridors of a captured Valthari destroyer. The aliens inside fought desperately, but they were trained for ship-to-ship combat, not the brutal close-quarters fighting that human soldiers excelled at. Room by room, deck by deck, the humans advanced through the enemy vessel. "Remember, we need some of them alive," Jae-wook reminded his troops over the communication system. "These prisoners have to carry word of our victory back to their empire." The human marines moved with deadly efficiency, using stun weapons to disable alien crew members rather than killing them. They had trained for years in mock-ups of Valthari ships, learning every weak point in alien armor and every vulnerability in their defensive positions. Dr. Yejin coordinated the technical warfare from her station aboard Incheon's Revenge. Her fingers flew over control panels as she used captured Valthari command codes to turn the aliens' own systems against them. Ship after ship found their shields failing, their weapons powering down, their life support systems shutting off. "I'm accessing their fleet communication network," she reported to Admiral Taehyung. "Their captains are panicking. Some are trying to retreat. Others are calling for reinforcements that will never come." On the planet's surface, the liberation was proceeding even faster than planned. So-Min led teams of freed prisoners in attacks against Valthari ground installations. The alien guards, demoralized by the destruction of their fleet in orbit, offered little resistance. Many simply abandoned their posts and tried to hide among the civilian population. The internment camps are liberated, Somin reported over her communication device. We freed over 20,000 prisoners, including hundreds of children, from the education centers. Hanul had taken control of the planetary communication system, broadcasting the battle to every human settlement across Valthari space. Her message was simple but powerful. Humanity was fighting back and they were winning. This is New Busan calling all human colonies. She spoke into the transmitter. The Liberation Fleet is here. We are free, and you can be free too. Rise up, against your oppressors. Show them that we are not slaves anymore. The response was immediate. On world after world, humans who had lived in fear for 15 years suddenly found the courage to fight back. Valthari garrison forces, already spread thin across their empire, found themselves facing uprisings on dozens of planets simultaneously. Governor Kethmore stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship, watching his fleet being systematically destroyed. The Eternal Dominion, once the pride of the Valthari Navy, was now a floating wreck. Its shields were gone, its weapons disabled, its hull torn open by human particle beams. "Sir, we have to evacuate," urged his aide, Kelmore. "The ship's life support is failing. The humans are preparing to board us." But the governor couldn't move. He stared at the tactical display, watching as ship after ship disappeared from his fleet roster. In less than 2 hours, the humans had destroyed or captured nearly 300 Valthari vessels. It was the greatest military disaster in the Empire's history. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "They were primitive creatures. We gave them the gift of civilization, and this is how they repay us?" Admiral Taehyung's voice came over the communication system, calm and implacable. "You never gave us civilization, Governor. You gave us slavery. You gave us death. You gave a suffering. Now we're returning the favor." The human boarding pods attached to the Eternal Dominion's hull with metallic clangs. Cutting tools began slicing through the alien ship's armor, preparing entry points for assault teams. Within minutes, human Marines would be inside the vessel, capturing the crew that had once terrorized human colonies. Captain Minho of Tokyo's Wrath reported the destruction of the last Valthari battle group. "All enemy combat vessels have been eliminated or captured, Admiral. We're detecting a few ships trying to escape to hyperspace, but most of their fleet is gone. Let the survivors run," Admiral Taehyung ordered. "They need to carry word of this defeat back to the Valthari homeworld. I want every alien in the Empire to know that humanity is no longer helpless." The battle was over, but the reckoning was just beginning. Human forces spread across New Busan, liberating every settlement and freeing every prisoner. The education centers where children had been brainwashed were opened, revealing the full extent of alien cruelty. Families were reunited after years of separation. Dongwook stood in the central square where he had watched 12 humans die just days before. Now Valthari prisoners knelt in the same place, their hands bound, their crystalline faces showing fear for the first time in their lives. The roles had been completely reversed. "What do we do with them?" Somin asked, gesturing to the alien captives. "We treat them better than they treated us," Dongwook replied. "We're not monsters like they are, but they will stand trial for their crimes against humanity." Dr. Yejin analyzed the captured Valthari technology, preparing humanity for the counterattack that would inevitably come. But now humans had proven they could match alien science and exceed alien determination. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted dramatically. Commander Jae-wook established security around the liberated settlements, protecting the freed humans while they adjusted to their newfound freedom. Many people who had been slaves for 15 years didn't know how to be free anymore. They would need time and help to remember what life had been like before the invasion. As the red sun of New Busan set on the first day of liberation, Admiral Taehyung received reports from across human space. Every Valthari occupation force was under attack. Every human colony was rising in rebellion. The spark lit at New Busan was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. "Phase 1 is complete," he announced to his fleet. "New Busan is free. Now, we prepare for Phase 2. We're going to liberate every human world, and then we're going to make the Valthari Empire pay for what they did to our people." The age of human slavery was ending. The age of human vengeance had begun. 6 months after the liberation of New Busan, Admiral Tae-hyung stood on the observation deck of Incheon's Revenge, watching as the last Valthari transport ships departed from human space. The once mighty empire that had ruled 1,000 worlds now controlled barely 50 systems, their forces scattered and demoralized by constant human attacks. "The evacuation of Kepler colony is complete," reported Communications Officer Jinne. "That makes it the 47th human world we've liberated. The Valthari are in full retreat across the entire sector." The Admiral nodded with satisfaction. Operation Silent Thunder had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. What began as a desperate plan to free one world had become a galactic revolution that toppled an empire. Across human space, the blue flag of Earth flew once again over settlements that had known only alien rule for 15 years. On New Busan's surface, Captain Dong-wook walked through the capital city that had once been the center of Valthari power. The alien administrative buildings had been converted into schools and hospitals. The execution square where 12 humans had died was now a memorial garden where children played freely, under the open sky. "Hard to believe it's really over," said Hanul, joining him beside the memorial fountain. She now served as the planet's chief communications officer, coordinating with the Liberation Fleet and newly freed colonies across human space. "It's not over," Dong-wook replied quietly. "The Valthari still have their core worlds. They'll be back eventually, probably with allies. But we've proven something important. We've shown the galaxy that humanity can't be broken." Dr. Yejin had established research facilities on every liberated world, studying captured alien technology and preparing for the next phase of the war. Her laboratories were filled with Valthari equipment, each device carefully analyzed and improved upon. Human science was advancing by decades each month as they absorbed centuries of alien knowledge. "We're not just matching their technology anymore," she reported to Admiral Tae-hyung during their weekly briefing. "We're surpassing it. Our new shield generators are 40% more efficient than theirs. Our weapons can penetrate defenses that stopped their own ships." The secret to humanity's success wasn't just better technology. It was something the Valthari had never understood: the power of creative thinking and the refusal to accept defeat. Where alien engineers followed rigid rules and ancient traditions, human scientists experimented and improvised. Where Valthari commanders relied on proven tactics, human captains adapted and evolved. Commander Jae-wook had established training academies on the liberated worlds, teaching a new generation of human warriors. Young people who had grown up under alien rule were learning to fight for their freedom. Veterans of the resistance movements shared their knowledge with eager students who dreamed of serving in the Liberation Fleet. "We have more volunteers than we can possibly train," Jae-wook reported. "Everyone wants to join the military. Everyone wants to fight back against the aliens who stole their childhoods." The liberation had triggered uprisings across the galaxy. Other species that had been conquered by the Valthari watched humanity's victory and found the courage to rebel. The Zentari, enslaved for 2 centuries, rose up and reclaimed their homeworld. The peaceful Meraki began sabotaging Valthari mining operations. Even the mighty Kronak, proud warriors who had been defeated in honorable combat, started questioning their surrender. Admiral Tae-hyung received reports from intelligence agents throughout Valthari space. The Empire was cracking under pressure from multiple fronts. Their fleets were spread thin, trying to maintain control over rebellious worlds. Their economy was collapsing as slave labor disappeared and trade routes were disrupted. "The Valthari High Council is in chaos," reported Captain Wu Jin, who had been monitoring enemy communications from Seoul's Vengeance. "They're arguing about whether to negotiate with us or launch a massive counterattack. Some want to withdraw to their core worlds and build defenses. Others want to gather every ship in the Empire for one final battle." "Let them argue," Admiral Tae-hyung replied. "Every day they spend in debate is another day for us to grow stronger and liberate more worlds." So-min had become a symbol of human resistance, her story inspiring rebels across the galaxy. The young woman who had lost her family in the early days of occupation now led diplomatic missions to other oppressed species, teaching them the tactics that had freed humanity. The Zentari want to join our alliance, she reported after returning from their homeworld. They're offering to share their biotechnology in exchange for military support against the Valthari garrison forces on their outer colonies. The human Liberation fleet continued to grow as more worlds were freed, and their shipyards began producing vessels of their own. The original 12 dreadnoughts were now supported by hundreds of cruisers, destroyers, and support ships. Human space was becoming a fortress that no enemy could penetrate, but victory came with responsibilities. Millions of humans who had lived as slaves for 15 years needed to learn how to be free again. Children who had never known anything, but alien rule had to discover their own culture and heritage. Entire generations had grown up speaking Valthari languages and following alien customs. "We're not just fighting a war," Dongwook said during a council meeting of liberated world leaders. "We're rebuilding a civilization. We're teaching people how to be human again." The task was enormous, but humanity had faced impossible odds before and survived. On every freed world, schools were established to teach human history and culture. Libraries were built to preserve the knowledge that aliens had tried to destroy. Hospitals treated both the physical and mental wounds left by years of oppression. Young Boram, who had been barely old enough to remember life before the invasion, now served as a teacher in one of the new schools. She told her students about Earth, about the blue skies and green forests that their grandparents had known. She taught them songs in their own language and stories from their own history. "Someday we'll see Earth again," she promised her class of former slave children. "Someday we'll walk on the world where humanity was born." The Valthari Empire, meanwhile, was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. Entire sectors declared independence, their governments choosing to align with the human liberation movement rather than face continued rebellion. Trade networks that had existed for centuries fell apart as species after species broke free from alien control. Emperor Zethquan, absolute ruler of the Valthari for 300 years, found his empire, reduced to a handful of core systems. His once mighty fleets were scattered across the galaxy, fighting losing battles against enemies who had learned from human example. "Perhaps we should negotiate," suggested his chief advisor during an emergency council meeting. "The humans might accept our surrender if we offer reparations and agree to withdraw from all occupied territories." "Never," the Emperor replied, his crystalline form glowing with anger. "We are the Valthari. We do not surrender to inferior species. We will gather every ship, every warrior, every weapon we possess and crush this human uprising once and for all." But even as he spoke, the Emperor knew his empire was doomed. The humans had done more than win battles. They had destroyed the myth of Valthari superiority that had kept conquered species obedient for centuries. They had proven that even the mightiest empire could fall if its subjects refused to accept defeat. Admiral Taehyung received the Emperor's declaration of total war with calm satisfaction. "Good," he said to his assembled captains. "Let them gather their fleets. Let them come at us with everything they have. We'll show them what happens when you underestimate humanity." The liberation of human space was complete, but the war for galactic freedom was just beginning. Across the galaxy, oppressed species looked to humanity as an example of what was possible. If humans could defeat the Valthari Empire, then anyone could be free. As the sun rose over New Busan on the anniversary of liberation, children who had been born in slavery played freely in gardens where execution platforms once stood. Above them, the ships of humanity's fleet kept watch, ready to defend the freedom that had cost so much to achieve. The age of human enslavement was over. The age of human expansion was about to begin. And somewhere among the stars, other species watched and learned that freedom was not a gift to be given by masters, but a right to be seized by those brave enough to fight for it. The galaxy would never be the same.